Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason in Rome, New York, and behind me is the National Park designated site, the Fort Stanwix National Monument. I'll be taking you there, and the fort pretty much is reconstructed of what it looked like during the 18th century, like during the American Revolution. Now, there were parts that were not reconstructed for various reasons, but it is believed to what the fort looked like and what evidence was left behind, and of course diaries and journals kind of helped preserve it. So I'm definitely going to show you around inside the fort, so it's going to be a great time. Come with me. And while you're doing this, you can also do the cell phone audio tour stop, like call that number while you're here and let your phone guide you around. But yes, that is the reconstructed fort. Again, we'll be going inside there. And it's really big on the inside as well as the outside. And unfortunately, the day of my visit, the visitor center was closed. And unfortunately, it's not open on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, but it is what it is. But the fort is open from sunrise to sunset. Anybody can go out here. And of course, there's a walking trail that leads to it. And along this trail, you'll encounter a few historical markers that have a few tidbits of information, like this one right here. The Fort Stanwix is best known for the 1777 siege, but such dramatic events were not a feature of everyday life here. Limited space inside the fort forced some soldiers and a few of their wives and children to live outside the walls. A unique community formed outside the fort. Working for daily rations, the women and children did laundry, nursing, and the most menial tasks, forming the backbone of day-to-day life. They are the unsung heroes in the history of Fort Stanwix. So Fort Stanwix was a British fort built during the French and Indian War in 1758, but it was abandoned in 1768, right until the American Revolution, when General George Washington ordered that the fort be built to protect the new nation's northwest border, under the new name Fort Schuyler. In the second half of this 20th century, a historically accurate reconstruction of the fort was completed. This national park designated site currently serves as a way to look at 18th century American history. And I believe it was 1935 when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt put this under the national park banner. And then right at the corner of Black River Boulevard and Dominic Drive is where the actual entrance to the reconstructed fort is. And just as you cross the bridge, you are in the fort. Let's see what this says here. Fort Stanwix is large and well situated. The examination of this fortification gave me a better idea of the strength and importance of a fort than anything I've ever saw or read. From Captain Joseph Bloomfield from 1776. And as we enter the fort, you just gotta kind of get a close-up of all these sharp edges. And what's really cool is some of these I can actually go in. The Artisans Quarters. This is where the tradesmen were hired from time to time at the fort, for example, carpenters and blacksmiths. They would have also supervised the less skilled maintenance work conducted by regular soldiers. Majority of the time, the soldiers would have completed day-to-day rough skilled construction and repair work at the fort. Alright. I'm going to watch my head. Yep, I had to duck. Alright. Ooh, hello. Alright. The park ranger told me there's a lot of sharp objects in here, so don't do anything stupid. Okay, this looks like an interesting room because doesn't look like there's much in here except for this table. Wow. I'm sure they had this back in the day, this smoke alarm. I'm just playing. And of course, candles are fake, but But I mean, they did a really good job restoring this. So here is a bomb-proof, the southwest one. Today we call it bomb shelter, but this was the place where they kept food like salt, meat, peas, flour, rice, vinegar, and some non-weapon supplies. It also served as a hospital during 1777. All right. Boy, this is a low ceiling. I'm like, I'm really about ready to hit my head. Oh wow, it's like going into a tunnel. Yeah, it's pitch dark, but very few light. Oh man, this would have been like my hiding place. I know you can't see it, but there's like some wagons, some beds, and a few other necessities. All right, well, I can't go further than there. It's restricted apparently. That's okay. Entertainment for the garrison. As an isolated outpost, there were few diversions to keep the troops entertained in the evenings. Soldiers would pass the time by singing, playing games, and sometimes indulging in forbidden pursuits such as gambling. Troops cooked their own meals. A soldier's daily ration consisted of 1 pound of salted meat, 1 pound of bread, and 1 cup of vegetables from the fort's garden, which would consist of usually cabbage, potatoes, peas, and turnips. And wondering where this stairway leads to. Alright, so anywhere behind the rope I can access, but I get a nice view either way. All the cannons and everything. It's like, hey, we ready. And this building right here was the prison, and this historical marker talks all about it. The confinement. In the 18th century, prison was not considered punishment in itself. Prisoners were those awaiting their sentence. Punishments were usually painful and humiliating, performed in public as an example to the rest of the garrison. Capital punishment was reserved for the most serious crimes, but even minor transgressions were punished by flogging. Offending soldiers were kept chained in the guardhouse until they were brought up for court-martial. This room has been laid out to look like the guardhouse, although the original building has not been reconstructed. So, oh hello, about my head. Check this out. These are old school playing cards. That's where they would have slept, I guess. This one got a little privacy. Now, of course, these are all fake guns or wooden guns that were carved to look like the guns they used back then, but just imagine this place, you know, during the 18th century. These were all real guns and real weapons, just ready to be picked up and used. Kind of use your imagination, in other words. So here's the entrance to the dining room and the commandant's quarters. I'm gonna start over here. This was the orderly room. It was the headquarters of the fort, where officers conducted the general business of the fort, which would be writing daily garrison orders, holding meetings, completing paperwork, and staging courts martial. This room has been laid out to look like an orderly room, although the original orderly room was located in the headquarters building, which was not reconstructed. Well, the dining room part you'll see in a second. But the commandant's quarters, this room has been laid out to look like the commandant's quarters. It was located in the headquarters building, which was not reconstructed. The fort commander was a man of wealth and high social status, which was reflected in the quality of furnishings and personal items that he brought with him to the fort. At least one private was assigned to take care of all the commander's needs, and he had at least 2 horses at his disposal. He also had the resources to maintain regular communications with home. Compare this with the life of a regular soldier, who had few personal belongings and neither the literacy skills nor the money to send and receive letters. And we can't go in those two, but I'd check it out anyway. The dining room. Normally this room would have been living quarters for 2 to 3 officers. This room would have been located in the headquarters building, which was not reconstructed. The room was used as a meeting place for officers and a dining room for Colonel Gansa Fort. Alright. And here's the commandant's quarters. See, he's got food laid out there like a king. It looks like he's got calzones. Oh no, that's a pie, never mind. Lemons. And then got a little desk. And I imagine that's where he also slept. And of course, as he kept warm with the fireplace. Remember, no heating and cooling. Modern day existed back then. It's always easy to forget, I don't know why. There are a lot of historical markers on this side. I'll skip some of them, but I won't skip this one. Family quarters. Throughout the war, soldiers would have been accompanied by their families as they had no other way of supporting them. Later in the war, it became common for officers running low on assets to also have their families join them. Most families would have lived in surrounding camps rather than within the fort. Wives and older children worked as camp followers, doing domestic duties in exchange for food and shelter. This was considered quite a hardship for some officers' wives. And we'll go in. Nice. That's where they want to put the baby too. The missionaries' quarters. While missionaries generally went into Indian lands simply with a desire to spread the word of the Christian God and to do good works, the American Revolution involved them in political missions as well. Both the Americans and the British used their missionaries in attempts to sway the Indians to one side or another by mixing politics into their religious messages. The most influential American missionary in the Mohawk Valley was the Reverend Samuel Kirkland, who ministered to the Oneida Indians, or Oneida, sorry. While in the area, he was headquartered at Fort Stanwix. He reported to Congress on Indian affairs and served as chaplain to the garrison. This room represents the type of quarters Kirkland might have lived in when he stayed at the fort. That's a picture of Kirkland. And let's see what the reproduction looks like. Yeah, I mean, it's probably no different than the others. I mean, it's got a fireplace. It's got a bunk bed. Places where he can sit. And wherever he lays his hat, that's his home. And finally, the soldiers' quarters, casemate. This space represents a typical quarters for regular soldiers. A casemate of this size would have housed at least 40 soldiers every night. The soldiers cooked and ate by the fire and slept on the straw bunks. Soldiers slept sitting up because it was believed to be healthier than laying stretched out. Interesting. During the day, the barracks were empty, except for any sick soldiers. With such close conditions and poor sanitation, sickness was commonplace. This little picture. And now we're going to go in. And again, be very careful when you do come here. I mean, this involves you to step over things and risk hitting your head. Wow, look at this. But, you know, on the bright side, you know, always got to think positive. They had a place that slept, and they believed in the American dream. They believed in putting their country first. So this is a dual fireplace then, okay. Is this an outhouse?
No, that is a sentry box. That's where I would be standing if it was raining to keep my black powder dry.
Ooh, okay. Now, where was the place where they all went to the restroom, just out of curiosity?
That was not reconstructed. The Mohawk River used to run parallel to where the Black River Boulevard is now. So there would have been a small structure built out from from this bastion here, going out over the river. And it would just have some holes in the floor, and you would do your business. It would drop down, and the river would carry it away.
Got it. Okay.